Welcome to Balance and Beyond, the podcast for ambitious women who refuse to accept burnout as the price of success. Here, we're committed to empowering you with the tools and strategies you need to achieve true balance, where your career, relationships, and health all thrive, and where you have the power to define success on your terms. I honour the space you've created for yourself today. So let's take a breath and dive right in. I had an experience this morning on the way to school, which may sound familiar. And while it used to be a really common occurrence, it struck me like a ton of bricks this morning that how I handled it was completely different to how I would have handled this experience once upon a time. And it made me realize that this skill that I'm going to share with you today is probably the most important one I've learned over the last few years. Learning this skill has completely revolutionized all my relationships. It's changed how I relate to myself. And most importantly, it's brought me so much more calm and peace than I ever thought possible. What am I talking about? Well, let me share with you this experience that happened this morning. Very raw, very real. And I'm sure if you've got kids, you can relate in some way, shape, or form to this. Or maybe even if you don't have kids, there's been grown-ups in your life that have done this to you. Taking a child to school, and this child had a bunch of assessments all due, railing that the teacher changed the deadline and it's not fair and I've got to stay up till 11 o'clock at night and I'm so overwhelmed. And literally on the way to the station was alternating between sheer rage and anger and disappointment and overwhelm and tears and just so much going on. Then that started to turn to me. Why are you making me go to school? I should be able to stay home. I've got so much to do. These are really important assessments. And the old me would have fired right back. I would have got angry. I would have got annoyed. I would have been frustrated. I would have dropped her at the station. She would have slammed the door. I would have gone off. And I probably would have carried that for the rest of the day. And I guarantee she would have. However, the skill that I had learned in that moment is this wonderful skill called detachment. And what this means is, as she was railing about the teacher and going on about how much she had to do, I wasn't heartless in that moment, but I was actually able to sit with her disappointment and sit with her anger and sit with her rallying about the injustice of it all. Hello, fairness muscle. And what detachment means is I didn't make any of that mean anything about me. Now, I didn't used to be this way. Let's just be very, very clear. But detachment is something that keeps me grounded. It keeps me calm. And it actually makes me far better positioned, I guess you would say, or resourced to deal with whatever is going on in front of me, whether that's a business decision I need to make, whether that's something I need to do around parenting, something that I need to do with somebody else in my life. So let me share with you what actually sits behind this skill. And most importantly, why is it so hard for us to do? It took me a really long time to learn this one, despite trying and trying and trying and trying. And I'd heard it and it's on a fridge magnet. And like, oh my gosh, just let it go and don't make it mean anything. And what are you making this mean? And all these things. But there's a difference between intellectually knowing something and really embodying it. And I've been doing this work for a really long time. This is something that I teach to my higher level clients. In fact, we've done, multiple months worth of work on this, and it's been groundbreaking for all of them as well. So detachment is really, at its simplest, the skill of detaching your emotions from someone else. What I mean by this is my daughter can be angry, and I don't have to have a corresponding emotion about that. Her anger doesn't have to trigger my anger or my guilt or my shame or my frustration that will then trigger her shame and her guilt, and we ping pong back and forth. So when another human around you pings, you no longer pong, which completely changes the dynamic of all your relationships. Now, let's be clear, I'm not asking you to be a robot here. You are going to have feelings, and that is okay. But I want you to learn to have feelings that are your own and to minimize the feelings that you have in response to someone else, or to be able to better control the emotions you have about someone else because they are all yours. By that, I mean, you might say someone made you angry and they made you feel guilty and they made you feel selfish and they made you feel sad. Truth is, no one can make you feel anything. You've done that all by yourself. You got very creative, and some people have got very, very good at beating themselves up and making all these meanings of things. So it's hard because we're human. We live in tribes and we don't scone ourselves up on a desert island and drinking margaritas and sitting with a beach volleyball called Wilson. We have to work with other people. We have to interact with other people. But what I find fascinating is that as a human, our world is all about us. And by that, I mean everything that happens to us, in us, around us, we apply a what does that mean about me lens to everything. So imagine you are putting these glasses on that says, she's angry. What does that mean about me? That person cut me off in traffic. What does that mean about me? And this, what does that mean about me, means that we then become brilliant storytellers. Because most of what happens to us is not fact. It's not charged. If somebody cut you off in traffic, it's neither good nor bad. A child upset in the car with you, that's neither good nor bad. It is. It's a fact. They're upset. It's an observation. It's the story you make her being upset mean, or somebody cutting you off in traffic mean, or somebody didn't include you on that meeting request. It's you making up all of these stories and all of this meaning. And this is where the bulk of our suffering, stress, all comes from, is it is all self-induced. So for you not to be rocked by others and to learn to detach from them, you really have to do two things that really make up this skill. Let's say two fundamental components. First up, you need to learn how to not make a meaning of somebody else's emotion or experience or interaction. So this is taking off those glasses, and instead of going, oh my gosh, she said that, that means I'm a bad parent, that means that she doesn't respect me, that means that she's entitled, that means that that person's an idiot, whatever it may be, you've made all this meaning of it. More often than not, the meaning you make of it is not an empowering one. It's pretty rare that we go, oh, she's doing that. Gosh, I'm an awesome parent. I'm having an awesome day. I'm raising great humans. Sometimes that may be the case, but more often than not, these stories we tell ourselves are designed to make us feel pretty bad. So first up, you have to learn how not to make a meaning of the emotion or the experiences of those around you. Take those glasses off. Interwoven with number one, and why this can be so hard, is that you need to learn to sit and be with somebody else's emotion around you without fixing it or changing it or controlling it. I'm going to say that again. For you to learn to be detached, you have to be able to sit in your own discomfort of someone around you being angry, or your own discomfort about somebody being upset or overwhelmed or stressed, and not wanting to dive in and fix it. Usually the reason that we go in and fix things and want to control them and want to suppress them is because we can't sit with somebody else's discomfort. If they're feeling upset, we've made a meaning of that upset and we want to go in and change it. Now, often that can come from a good place. We can turn around and say, you know what? I don't want her to feel sad. Of course, that comes from a place of being a parent, and I don't want that person to feel really bad, and I don't want this and I don't want that. But instead, it can be really hard to sit in that, because again, you've got to choose a different meaning. You've got to choose curiosity, and you've got to choose compassion, and just being able to sit and hold and knowing, okay, her being angry right now is also triggering me. But I don't have to do anything about that right now. I don't need to react. I have the choice to take space, to have agency over my own emotions, to control myself, and to now choose intentionally, even though she's triggering me, even though I want to fight back. Right now is not the time. I can take that anger, I can put it in my back pocket, learn to process it later, and actually be present to what is needed in that time. To be clear, I'm not suggesting you become a robot. I'm not suggesting you become numb. I'm not suggesting you become mute and just sit there like, not say anything, just sit to be detached. That is the opposite of detached. That is you trying to numb everything and hold it all in. Anytime you have been triggered, you are acting from a past wound. By that, I mean, if you've made meaning of your child is angry at you, that must mean I'm a bad parent. The moment that triggering happens, you are going back into an old wound and you are now living in the past. The past time where maybe your parent got angry at you because you said they were a bad parent, or your deep-seated belief that maybe you're not doing a good enough job, or whatever guilt or shame that you're holding, they've just poked that wound and put some salt in and gone, and you've gone, rah. Usually an over-the-top response to what would be happening. Now, ironically, when you can actually not be triggered and learn to manage your own triggers, because you're not ponging to the other person's ping, you're able to diffuse that situation much faster than, say, retaliating back in anger or going back at them or guilting them or shaming them, which more often not was the default response to our parenting and how we were parented. So to clarify how I would have acted in the past is I would have sat there and I could have made up any one of these meanings depending on the day, depending on what emotional state I was in. I might have said things like, oh my gosh, she's mad at me. She's projecting all her anger on me. How dare she be mad at me after everything I've done for her? Maybe if I've taken the lazy angle, she just wants to sit at home. That's lazy. No one in our family is ever lazy. She's upset. I must be a bad parent. I'm not spending enough time with her. She's upset. I should have consoled her. I should have been there more. I should have helped her plan more. What will anyone think of me if they see me dropping my child at the station with tears going down her face? They're going to think I'm a horrible parent. Can you see in all of those options, which are any one of those once upon a time I would have gone to, depending on which way the mood and which way the wind was blowing? All those dialogues were all about me. It was about after everything I've done for her. No one in this family is lazy. I'm a bad parent. I'm not spending enough time with her. I spend too much working. What are they going to think of me? Is it any wonder that in all of these reactions being about me and nothing to do with the other person, this is how the ping pong starts, because I'm now in my own world, making my own glasses, making a meaning of what's going on with her. I'm not responding to what she needs in that moment. I'm responding to, I'm now going to get angry about something. And then she's going to anger, but oh my gosh, mum, why are you angry at me? And then she feels shame. And then she says, you don't know what I'm going through. And I'm like, you don't know what I'm going through. And it ends up in this back and forth of either pandering or crying or triggering. And then I trigger her and she triggers me. And it is never, ever, ever a good outcome. I challenge anyone to have a conversation with a significant other, a child, a colleague, a boss, when you're triggered, and it be a better outcome than one when you are not. I'm not saying that sometimes we don't get angry and we don't want to express that anger, but there's a difference here in the meaning we make of it and in learning to be detached. So let me share how I acted this morning and how I was driving her home from the station. I was like, wow, that was so different. Now, she's probably still pissed at me. That's okay. She's entitled to her anger. She wanted to stay home. I probably would have too under the circumstances if I was her age. So what I did was I validated her anger and I didn't make her feel wrong for it. It's like, yeah, that's so wrong that the teacher brought it forward. And maybe you should go and petition and get all the other kids and say it's not fair that they did it, and agreed that it's so not fair, and turned around and then, I consoled her tears and I said, I know you're upset. Now, of course, she was angry that I didn't let her stay home. I would have been too. So like, I know you're angry. I get it. And if I were you, I'd be angry too. So again, I'm validating her feelings. I'm not making her wrong for being angry. And it was amazing when I just allowed her emotions to be. It's about a 6-minute drive to the train station. She would literally swing from almost like escalating anger to tears and I'm not going to have enough, and then overwhelm, and then back to anger. So I could literally see, almost like when they're toddlers and you see this toddler lose it on the floor and then stand up and cry and then lose it back on the floor again, cycling through these emotions really, really quickly, because I wasn't stopping her. I wasn't triggering her. I was allowing her to feel it all. Now, I didn't want her to feel this way. Let's be clear. It's no fun for anyone to see their loved one upset, angry, feeling like an injustice has happened. That's not the point of this. But because I was still in the present and not triggered, I was able to connect also to the outcome that was most important to me. As a parent, one of the big things I believe in as much because I see what happens when these things aren't upheld in a lot of my clients is consequences to me are a really important principle of parenting. And it's not fair that an assessment was moved, but having to now go to school and potentially have a late night is a really important consequence for her to learn that, you know what, sometimes deadlines do get moved. And you know what, sometimes all your teachers hit all your stuff at once and it's not fair. And it does mean that you need to pull a late one. But I feel like this lesson of having to deal with this, of learning to cope with it, is a life skill. And I'm willing to hang on to my long-term gain, the long-term lesson, the wisdom that she will gain from this experience. And I'm able to let go of any short-term discomfort that she or I have as the result of her reacting to the situation that she finds herself in. So when you can detach, when you make a different meaning from things, you can see how it becomes that much easier to focus on, okay, what do I want here? Not just I'm angry, doors being slammed. I mean, there's a chance that she's still going to be upset with me when she comes home tonight because she'll be up late. But again, I was able to connect with her in the car and say, all right, well, normally we sit down and have dinner together. You can have dinner in your room and let's make sure that, what do you want for dinner? Can I help you tonight? No, you can't help me. You can't do anything. Okay, well, the offer's there if you need it. So again, I'm validating, I'm having compassion. I'm able to sit there and really show her that there's a different way to handle this. This is about no more ping pong, no more escalations, minimizing them, no more triggers. Again, I'm human, you're human. You're going to have triggers, but this is about reducing the impact of them. It's the collateral damage. It's making sure that any emotions that are brought up in you are short-lived, that you can process them and step more back into your power and say, in this moment, how do I want to show up? Not necessarily what do I want to do, but who do I want to be? In this moment, I want to be someone who can sit with my child's discomfort because I know, having two kids now, that they have big emotions. And one of mine in particular is a really big feeler. So for me to squash that, for me to disavow her emotions, for me to make her escape them or me to enhance them and fuel them is not the right thing for me to be doing either. I want to teach everybody that works with me to regulate themselves. I want to teach you to be able to sit with what's going on for you and to learn this beautiful skill of detaching from someone else, making a different meaning, being able to choose curiosity or compassion or whatever you need in the moment. And I promise you, life is going to get that much more peaceful, that much more enjoyable. And it's why we're all here. I hope you've learned something in today's episode. I really encourage you the next time you're triggered or the next time you're with someone who's experienced a big emotion, whatever that is, that you remember what I've shared today, to take those "this is about me" glasses off and see if you can simply sit there, be with it, and detach. You've got this. Thanks for joining us today on the Balance and Beyond podcast. We're so glad you carved out this time for yourself. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who might need to hear this today. And if you're feeling extra generous, leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice would mean the world to us. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Balance and Beyond podcast.